Welcome to our inaugural episode of She Talks Therapy, Business, and Life with Amy Hood, and I have my good friend Erin Curtner here today. And so this is something that I've never done before. I've wanted to for a long time, but it just felt like it had never been the right thing and the right topic that I thought would be interesting for me and would be interesting for you guys. Because honestly, I've got a ton of educational stuff out there. And I didn't want to do another educational channel. I wanted to do something that I wanted to come in and talk to interesting people from all walks of life, but it be through the therapy lens. And of course, if you've been following me for any time, you know that I'm a business owner, and also I have a life. And so again, that's why I was sitting down trying to figure out what to name this, and I thought She Talks. But again, She Talks, what are we talking about? Therapy, business, and life. So again, those of you guys who are watching this, hopefully the Sandtray Summit, are getting the very first episode. And one thing I want you to do for myself and Erin is to be kind and gracious. If you've ever done anything for the first time, you know it's scary and it probably isn't going to be as good as it will be the next few times or whatever. So if you see us mess up, of course, this will be edited. So hopefully you get like the good version. But if you see us mess up or anything like that, be like, oh, just pat yourself on the back and be like, I'm not the only one. So again, that's our gift to you today. So I want to, again, allow my good friend Erin to introduce herself. I've known Erin for, over 20 years now.
I think so.
Erin was an intern for me back when I worked community mental health. So it was well over 20 years ago, I think.
Yeah.
And
it was like 2005, 2006.
Yeah, so right at 20 years. Because I was a brand new therapist, and then Erin was obviously an intern. And she went with me. I was home-based at that time. So she went with me to all the houses. And stuck right there with me. So again, Erin's also been, works here at the group practice at True Hope here in Jonesboro, has been with me the longest. I don't know how long exactly.
Like 2012 or 2013?
Yeah, 2013.
I think so.
It's almost 10 years. Which, in therapy world, that's actually a long time. It's like
in
dog
one
years.
place.
In one place, exactly. Exactly. So, Erin, tell us a little bit about you. You're married. You got, kind of let them know who you are.
So I've been with Amy for a long time. And I think I first met her back in the day in 2005. And I was like, wow, she's smart. And she thinks like me. And so I was like this little newbie. And I was like, I think I'm just going to hang on to her a little bit because I felt like she was nice to me. So that's a big deal. As an intern, she was nice. And I was like, I think I'm going to learn a lot from her. And so I just kind of gravitated towards her, and she was incredibly gracious to be able to let me go with her and tag along and learn. And then we kind of kept in touch a little. Mm-hmm. And then lo and behold, I think we were having a luncheon about Sandtray or something.
Yeah, yes.
And so then I came on board, and it was probably like the best thing that ever happened
absolutely.
to me. I love it. Very blessed in the therapy world to be here, and probably won't ever leave.
Hopefully.
Because it's a really great setup and I love it. But I know it doesn't always happen that way as a therapist. The road is always kind of bumpy, and you're trying to navigate where to go and what to do. And
you went through some not so great places, like many of us do before we land.
Not so great places. Some that I would probably never go back to, things that I would never go back to doing.
Well, and you were a clinical supervisor as well at some of those places.
Yes.
So you've had a little bit of the business end of it as well.
Right. And I did that for a while. I thought I wanted to kind of be in administration of some kind. And then I missed seeing the people and being able to do one-on-one therapy. And that's just kind of where I meant I'm meant to be. But yes, I'm married and I have a 15-year-old daughter, and it's her world and we're just living in it. If anybody has teenagers, you know kind of how that goes. Your schedule's crazy. So you're running all over the place and trying to schedule clients. So that's sometimes hard to balance and juggle. But yeah, I mean, I work a lot here because I love it. And I love people, and I love just getting to know people and their stories and trying to get them, like, just to get to be the best version of themselves and living the life that they have always dreamed of wanting to live.
Well, and I know you married your husband. This is second marriage for you.
Yes.
And so and this is something that Erin and I share as well. Like, I'm now married for the second time, and I have a stepson, and then Erin has a daughter, but her husband doesn't have any children, so he's a stepdad. And so we get to kind of Erin comes to me and is like, okay, so if this is what I'm doing, you know, how do I do this? And I do the same thing. Is like, okay, how does Justin, that's her husband, how does he handle this? Because it's really a whole new world sitting on this side of the, you know, I've talked, and you guys I'm sure have too, like, you've talked to parents, you've talked to clients about how to navigate this. It's a whole different arena when it's you in the middle of it.
Yeah. So I think I help her try to get a perspective of her husband. And then she helps me get the perspective of my husband.
Yes.
So we know what it's like to be biological parent versus step parent.
Yes.
And how to navigate that. And then we've both been together through two divorces. Your divorce is my divorce. And so we've been through a lot of just life things together. And so, yeah, it's interesting how that's happened and how it's come back around full circle to be able to help each other navigate all the life
stuff. And Erin
and
I are kind of similar personalities, especially I think in parts of therapy, is like, I'm, you know, person-centered in some ways, but also very much a realist as far as like, okay, what are we going to do about that? Like, we work with the trauma for sure, but also we have to live in the here and now. And I think that's something a lot of your clients kind of gravitate towards as well.
Yes. I always say, like, probably in the first session, I'm not everybody's cup of tea. And I'm not going to baby you all the time. But, I mean, I don't think anybody's really ever fired me. But I give them just like a heads up that what you see is what you get. I'm kind of blunt and to the point. And you're going to have to work if you want to get the best out of this experience. So if I'm not a good fit for you, that's totally fine. But know that you're going to have to work, and I'm not going to sugarcoat, and we're going to be here to work.
And sometimes we call Erin like the marriage buster, because when she sees couples, you know, it doesn't always work out, but you know, it's okay if it doesn't work out. Maybe it's for the best.
Yeah, they joke that like if I see sometimes marriage or couples for marriage therapy, that they end up getting divorced after they see me.
You know, sometimes it is what it is.
And it doesn't always happen that way. But yes, at times it has happened that way. So they're like, Erin, what are you doing in there? And I was like, I'm just getting them to the best version of their self they need to be. And
she's like, sorry for the yelling.
Yeah.
So modes, I mentioned a little bit about modes of therapy that I use. Of course, I do Sandtray. A lot of you guys who are watching this know me from the Sandtray world. But I tend to be very solution focused, you know, REBT kind of stuff. And of course, I came through grad school in the early 2000s. So of course, CBT was like everywhere. So that's kind of where my background is as well. So again, I lean on those a lot, but then also, you know, pull from narrative therapy and stuff. Not so much as an eclectic person, because I know, and again, this comes from my training, is when you pass your boards, you could not say you were eclectic, because that means you don't know anything. But as I've gotten older, you know, with 20 years doing this now, sometimes I'm like, you know, I really do kind of pull from things, but I do tend to be more solution focused. So for you, Erin, what kind of models of therapy do you use?
Obviously, yeah, the same. When you're first out, you're kind of just doing whatever. And so one, you're just trying to survive as a therapist. And then as you do it for a little while, you start to kind of figure things out. I do really like family systems, so I work with a lot of families, so that might be a little bit different in private practice for me. I do a lot of family therapy, so I'm bringing a lot of different family members sometimes to therapy. Definitely probably solution focused and just kind of meeting them where they're at to figure out just what they need, I guess, in life. And so support, just any kind of support systems, resources, but very much, I'm really big on probably family systems. I really like that.
For sure.
I love how everything all ties in together and everybody feeds off each other. I can't help somebody if their spouse or their kid, has something else going on. If I want to help, I want to help the whole system somehow.
So how do you get that buy-in, especially in private practice? Because a lot of people come in and be like, okay, I'm going to work on me. How do you get the buy-in then to get the family involved?
Well, probably just because on the very front end, I talk to parents and I make it clear that, like say I'm seeing a teenage kid, I make it clear that I want to meet mom and dad and that I also want to meet a step parent or I want to meet somebody else, just because everybody's involved in that kid's life and we all need to be on the same page. And I think sometimes you get met with a little bit of resistance just with schedules and if like a mom or dad works a lot. But after they do it one time, then they're like, when can we have our next family session? Mm-hmm. And then even with some of my adult clients, I've met a lot of their spouses. They've come in for sessions together. And some of them, maybe their husband or wife was scared to do therapy, but they come in and have a session with me and they're like, oh, that wasn't that bad. Maybe I'll go to therapy myself. And so it just I think it's just trying to introduce people that it can be a really warm and inviting environment and it can be a safe place for them to be able to get some stuff that they need to just do better with each other and do better in life.
Well, and a place to, I feel like, to be heard. That's something
Absolutely.
That if we switch to like the business lens and you talk about even marketing, is that everybody wants to feel heard. And because we constantly feel like, am I the crazy one? Am I this? And, we're all just trying to get through our day. So very rarely do we get a place in therapy or in business or somebody goes, oh, she gets me. And if you can tap into that, like you said, they'll follow you, in therapy or business or whatever for a long time. And I think, Erin, of course, doesn't have a lot of, when she does have people, she needs new people, it's because her people have gotten better. We were joking the other day. I was like, maybe you need to tone down this healing stuff, Erin. You're getting a little, you're joking. But yeah, so that's one of the nice things. And one of the things that makes me feel good is that I've been able to, help build a community of therapists here at True Hope to where there's little to no drama. Everybody comes in, does their job, and everybody's really kind of too busy to do a lot of drama. Everybody just comes in and works. And a lot of them are moms. I think everybody's moms. And so are just trying to get through the day. And one of the things, and this is again from a business systems perspective, is that when you get the social norm in a business and, in a group really, that the social norm is no drama, then if somebody comes into that system and starts to create drama, they kind of vote themselves off the island because no one else is participating in that. And we've had that happen a few times over the years,
right,
but not lately, really. And so it begins to be, from a management's perspective, it kind of runs itself because this is the group norm, is that we do our job. And if we have an issue, we'll, speak to them in an appropriate way, all that kind of stuff. But really, it kind of takes care of itself. Which again, because we're talking about therapy, business, and life, all this kind of bleeds into each other for sure. Is that, and it wasn't always, understanding that. And I really have a lot of empathy for people, or sympathy, to where they have to run businesses where they don't know the psychological part of it, the systems part of it. So they're just trying to do what the best they can. Like here at church, we're going through, we don't have a priest right now. So things are kind of up in the air and kind of everybody's kind of what's going on. There's been a lot of changes. And I said, I don't know how people would navigate this if they didn't understand systems, limbic systems, all those kind of things, because it would really be walking through the world with kind of one hand behind your back. And so we as therapists really have I feel like we know our stuff and we're able to navigate ourselves and other people in a better way than we would be otherwise. If you do hair or something like that, you don't have this knowledge. So again, if you're going into something new, again, this is a new thing for us, I have to understand that it's not going to be perfect. That's okay. Because 10 years ago, if I did something new, oh gosh, I would be in the floor crying, basically, so nervous because what if it doesn't work out? What if people think it's stupid? Blah, blah. Well, the more you work that muscle of doing new things, the easier it gets. And you realize it's not that big of a deal. And this is something I tell clients a lot too, and you may too. Nobody really cares. Unless it comes into their world, they're not going to really care. So that's something to kind of remember. Again, hopefully, as you join me on this journey, you're going to hopefully be excited about doing your own thing as well. So one of the things, because Erin is a Sandtray therapist, and of course I am as well, I thought it would be interesting to choose a miniature, and this is something I'll be doing each time you guys see me, to represent kind of how my last week has gone. So I don't know if you guys can see this. If not, we'll edit it in, but it's which way, here, there. And this is really just not this week, but lately what it has been in that trying to figure out who I am now as far as a stepmom. I have a husband who I really like. And again, having new aspects of the business that are coming out and moving. And I'm seeing clients again somewhat regularly. I don't see a ton for the first time in a long time. And so trying to figure out what this looks like without losing the core of who Amy is. So again, this is something I'm trying to do with you guys and to take you along this journey. And hopefully some of this will resonate with you. So yeah, this is which way, here, there kind of thing is. I think I could probably do this for the last 2 years of my life, honestly. All right, what you got, Erin?
So anybody that, meteorologist fans out there who absolutely love the weather here in Northeast Arkansas, we have had a ton of storms. And I think we were shocked, 5 years ago, we had a major tornado here in Jonesboro. And so I think everybody's on guard with weather if there's going to be something bad. And so I picked a tornado, one, because I never know when I'm going to have to go to a basement or the sirens are going to go off, but also because it also affects my schedule and planning and scheduling people. And just, I feel like sometimes just with life and kids and sports and trying to hold everything for everybody, that sometimes life can feel like a tornado too. So,
absolutely.
So I picked, and I always just go with my first gut instinct, which probably can be good and bad sometimes, but that was the first thing that came to mind was tornado.
Well, yes. And so this is something, again, Erin will be joining me sometimes, but I will, every time I'll give you guys a miniature to kind of talk about what's life like for Amy. And a lot of the reason why we're doing this podcast or web series is that a lot of people are interested into, okay, you've built this business. True Hope is 17 years old now. I've been a therapist for 20. Sandtray is over a decade old. I still have a property company. Have done several different things. And a lot of people in the business world have come up to me and been like, who's your coach? And I'm like, no one. I think I've never had a business coach. I learned because I didn't have a lot of money. And so I learned online and pieced things together and talked to people. And a lot of it, what I did is I talked to people who were more successful than me and kind of try to reverse engineer what they were doing and read books and things like that, because I really don't ever want to be the smartest one in the room. Because that means I don't have a whole lot to learn from other people. So, and I'm always looking to learn. And so people have, said, oh, can I work with you? Can I do this? Kind of their things. And just recently I've developed or in the process of developing a business consultation program to allow people to do that. But again, I wanted to be able to bring you guys in and see kind of what is life like for a therapist, entrepreneur, mom, wife, sister. Like my parents recently moved across the state. So, again, things change all the time. How do you hopefully navigate this? And I don't always get it right. I have my own therapist to try to figure some of this out.
And I think we joke sometimes too. I make this joke a lot that because I've known Amy for so long, I'm like, oh, Amy, the Sandtray guru. I'm like, everybody loves Amy. And so I laugh and joke with her, and it's not making fun of her. It's just how people view her. And they're like, oh my gosh, that's so amazing. You get to work with Amy. And it is, but she's also a human and just an individual. And, we get to see this whole other side of her that y'all don't get to see.
Yeah.
And so
I'm inviting you into that. Hopefully I'll try to have makeup on when we do this, but it doesn't happen every day.
Because I didn't know we were going to be on camera when we first started this.
Yes. So Erin is usually a very private person, but I thought what better person to join me to do this just because we have the history and is also you've gotten to see a whole lot of the business side than probably other people because you've been with me as I've built a lot of this. So one thing, can you remember your best day as a therapist? Can you remember, it doesn't have to be like a best day or a time or something like that.
It may seem super probably trivial, but I remember seeing this client, an adult male, and like I really enjoy my adult male clients. And so I had been seeing him for a while and he had like been through so much. And so he came in and I could tell he was kind of nervous. And I was like, what's up, dude? Like, is everything okay? Because I was like, he goes, well, I was just thinking. And he was like, I really don't know how to say this. He was like, but I think I want to break up with you. And I loved how he worded it because he was like, I think I need to break up with you. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's so amazing. And I was like, anybody that was hearing that conversation probably thought, what in the world? But it was so sweet because you could tell he was like, I don't know, but this is what I think. I think I'm ready to do it kind of on my own. And I was like, absolutely, you are ready to do it on your own. And so I thought it was the neatest thing. And he was like, I'm ready to break up with you. And I was like, awesome, that's amazing. And so we both laughed. And he's doing really good, I think. And I'm maybe weird like that, but I check in on my clients sometimes that leave me that I haven't seen in years. And he's doing really well. But I loved that because he saw, he'd been through so much and he saw the progress that he'd made and he was ready to kind of do it and make that journey on his own. And I loved it for him. So maybe.
Yeah. Well, when I'm thinking about my best day as therapist, one of the things is I always say the worst day in private practice is still better than the best day in agency work.
Oh, yeah.
So if you ever are trying to figure out, is it worth it? Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, make the leap.
Make the leap. So, and it is scary for sure, but at the same time, lots of things are scary. And it doesn't mean that it's not worth it. But anyway, that's aside. One of again, it's like burned in my memory. I had a client who was telling his mom about a Sandtray that he had done and described it it was in a family session, described it to her. And I remember that Sandtray so clearly, but I didn't get anything that he was telling her as far as like the meaning and how much it meant to him and it connected to his faith and all this kind of thing. And I thought, well, I'm glad it's not up to me to like heal the person through Sandtray because I didn't get any of that. And this was several months after this actual Sandtray had happened. So for me, it was a wonderful witnessing to happen for this healing, but also the validation, a reminder that I don't have to know everything in therapy, and especially Sandtray therapy, that the mode and the healing of the relationship is the most important part. And so, again, because a lot of us, especially when we're new therapists, we think we've got to have all the workbooks and we've got to have this. And
then all of it is on you.
And all of it is on you. Yes. I remember, again, laying awake at night, worrying to death about my little clients, what I was going to do the next day. How was I going to help them? And I don't do that now, but also it's an adjustment as far as what is my role in their life. And because sometimes that led to burnout more than anything, is trying to feel like it was all on me.
And I think too, as you educate yourself and get the training and the knowledge and age in this world of being a therapist, you realize that you're so much smaller part of it. Mm-hmm. And it works when you have the tools, and that you really are just a guide to kind of help facilitate some of this, and that it's not all you. I mean, that's probably the biggest change for me in seeing just the growth of to having all the tools and getting older, even just being in my 40s, that it doesn't have, it's when it works, when it truly works and progress is being made, it's very little to do with you and so much more to do with what's kind of happening in that room and with the trust factor and all the things. But if you have the tools and the knowledge, you're going to be doing less work, holding a lot, but doing less work, and they're going to be doing more of it on their own, which is really cool.
Well, because you always hear, the adage is, if you're working harder than the client,
yeah, it's not going to work.
And that's something to remind yourself. I still have to remind myself when I'm like, am I doing enough? Am I earning my money? Am I going to help these people? All this kind of stuff. Is that, yes, I'm here. I'm showing up. I have this knowledge. I have these tools, and it is enough. So this is something also, we may want to go here, may not, but can you remember one of your worst days as a therapist?
Yes, I do remember that. So
she's like cringing.
I know, because I'm like, oh my gosh, that was so long ago.
Well, I'm glad that it wasn't like last week.
No, it wasn't last week. I don't have a lot of bad days here. I was working in a residential treatment center. So that was kids ages 12 to 17. I think at that time it was co-ed, boys and girls. So kids from all over the state. Some of them had been in jail, different things, gang members, everything. And those of you can't see me, I'm 4'11". So I'm a short woman, but I loved working in residential, loved it. But I think I'd kind of put my guard down a little bit in that setting and was probably a little bit too trusting sometimes of just maybe the safety, my safety and the risk there at times. And so I had this boy who didn't get a pass for the weekend because of his behaviors, because he was aggressive. And so I was down on the unit, and we were walking down the hall, and I was trying to talk to him, and he turned and attacked me. And so he was choking me and had me up a little bit off the ground, was choking me up against a door frame. So I couldn't, all your training where you're supposed to do to get you out of that situation. I mean, it was a split second, but I mean, I guess he was choking me for a couple of seconds, and it was my life kind of flashed before me. And had I not had the behavioral instructors on the unit, I mean, they immediately got him off of me and put him in a hold to get him to calm down. But I think that was definitely a turning point for me, because I think when we get into this, we want to help people so much and we're all in, but there's also too a whole nother side where you have to keep yourself safe. And so I had been in some situations, I think, where maybe I should have been a little bit more cautious. And so after that, I was oh my gosh, my life kind of was okay, maybe I need to be a little bit more cautious. But I mean, yes, it was a scary day for me, but at the same time, I think it helped me to just see that my safety comes first. I want to help people and I really want to do a lot for people, but at the same time, I've got to be smarter about what I do and kind of where I put myself. So,
well, and sometimes I feel like they don't tell you that in grad school.
Oh,
like
no,
that's
not at all.
never a success story to be like, and here's what it's going to be like. I remember when I first got out of grad school, they would, the university would invite some of the graduates back, they'd been in the field to have like a lunch and learn kind of deal. And of course, this was after I graduated, I went right into Medicaid work, which was home-based, school-based. And it was one of those things too, where I remember I was 25, maybe young, looking around being like, why are there no older therapists here? And the reason, because it's super hard, and anybody who is like, I'm not doing this. I mean, you really earn your stripes. And that's, again, where I met Erin. But again, I would joke that I would want to go back and be like, none of this shit matters. That's a very cynical point of view. It does matter. But I'd be like, they want you to bill. That's what mattered in the agency I was working at. You got to bill. There were people that were not good therapists, were not doing ethical things. And it was more like just bill. And so for me, being in that system where I could pick, oh my gosh, so many days where it was super difficult. And this is a worst day as a person, I guess, and a therapist. I've been working for a couple of years in that system. And a lot of it, again, looking back, was my own stuff as far as what I was telling myself. But I was doing an intake with a little girl and her grandpa. And she had ID, so she, was a little behind. Really, really sweet little girl. So we were doing the intake, and of course, you remember if you've done Medicaid intakes, they're super long. And so I was going through all this stuff, and all of a sudden, the little girl goes, oh, looked at me, and I was like, what? And then what I realized is my lower lip started it got super big, was swelling enough to where I couldn't talk. And I had to and the little girl started crying because it scared her so much. And then of course I was like, you can't continue an intake when you can't talk or doing this. And I said, I'll have to reschedule. And so I went to the allergist here in Jonesboro, whose name is Dr. Snodgrass, which I think is a hilarious name for an allergist. Because I thought I've developed an allergy to something. I've done something. And of course, they immediately put me on steroids and stuff. And then they said, we want to get you allergy testing. So I did all the little prick things on my back. And that didn't come back as anything. Well, it kept happening, though. I'd wake up in the morning, sometimes brush my teeth, and my eye would swell shut, and my lips, and enough to where it would break. It was bad. And it would be random times. And so eventually when I worked with a doctor and stuff, they figured out that the cortisol was so high in my body that it was because of all the stress. It was having an allergic reaction almost to itself. And so, because I developed hives and different things like that. And so they put me on Lexapro, 10 milligrams, and it went away. And so then fast forward a few years where I decide that I'm better. And, some people who have bipolar do, and I'm not a bipolar person, but how you're better, I don't need my meds. So I went off my meds. What happened? I stopped sleeping. Again, my face started swelling, only it was worse. It was this kind of thing. And it was just a big wake up call for me, is that I can't keep going at this pace and doing these things without there being a big downside on my body. And that, the body, now we know the body keeps score. This was before all of that was real in vogue like it is now. But as far as it was this isn't, because I was raised in a home where you just work, you just do it. It doesn't matter. You just get up and work. And so, and it's a good thing because they instilled a lot of work ethic in us, but also I don't know when to stop either. And so that was one of, I guess, ended up being the best days because it was a big wake up call, but it was one of the worst days in that I was like, what am I going to do? What is going on? And like Erin said, I didn't even know yours, but kind of our safety also comes first, whether it's ourselves, physically, mentally, all that kind of stuff, to be able to come back and go, okay, what are we doing? And I have a lot of empathy for people who are going through major life things, and you still have to show up for your clients.
Absolutely.
And that is my best friend. Her husband died 6 years ago, now, of ALS, and she's a therapist, and it was really difficult for her to show up for her clients while she's dealing with this huge thing. So again, to acknowledge that if that's you, you're not alone. It's a hard thing, and to be able to get support can be a major help. And then maybe rearranging expectations. That's one of the things I had to do. Is like when I went through my divorce 3 or 4 years ago, I had to rearrange the expectations of what I could do, because I didn't have the capacity to do other things. And that's okay.
And it's crazy to imagine, but I know this is so wild, but therapists are not good at setting boundaries.
No.
Even though we preach that all the time, we will run ourselves into the ground to be able to help people, and we're not good at setting boundaries ourselves. And so this job definitely forces you to have to set boundaries. And you're a human too. We all have lives too. We all are dealing with grief on the other side of it, or going through divorce, or moving, or family members being sick and wondering what's going on. And so you have to set boundaries, and you have to realize your immediate circle and your family and yourself comes first. And they really need to come first before your clients. I mean, for you to be a healthy therapist and for you to be able to do a good job for your clients, you have to take care of yourself. You have to.
Yeah. And that's something I have to tell myself
every day.
All the time.
Every day. Every day you wake up.
No, this is important. People will, again, we want to honor our commitments, but they'll live if, again, I have this come up, or I get sick, or whatever. It's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. People will get what they need. And then sometimes, I know early on in my career, and I've seen this in other people, it's kind of an ego thing too. Sometimes is that I'm the only one who can help these people. And that's not true.
No.
I mean, for a billion reasons. But to be able to go, it's okay if they go see someone else, or it's okay if I'm not, like Erin says, I'm not the cup of tea for everybody. That's a challenge to be able to get to as well, to be able to, okay, in the way you do therapy. And this is true as a business person as well. This is how I do business. And sometimes people don't like it, and kind of to be the bad guy. And I've talked to Erin about this over the years too, is that I have to sometimes make those hard decisions, or none of us have jobs. I have to make sure the mortgage is paid, and I have to make sure that payroll and all this kind of stuff, or none of us have jobs. And that can be a challenge in and of itself. And Erin's been great over the years to kind of, because again, I think you've seen all the facets, all the things. And because it's easier to step outside and go, why isn't she doing this? And why can't we do this? And Erin's pretty good about, and this is helpful, again, if you're starting a business or going to employ people or anything, to have those frank conversations. If you have a person who you trust to tell you the truth and go, this is a problem, and you trust that it's not about ego or side conversations or things like that, it can be amazing. Because sometimes I don't see it. I don't see it. And to be able to have somebody who will be able to go, this is something we need to really look at. And then I'll do it if I can, and not, then I'll let you know, here's why this isn't going to work. Or maybe not right now.
And I think too, like Amy can be very black and white. And so I tell people that. So sometimes, like other therapists that have worked here, therapists get their feelings hurt. Sometimes we just do. And so a lot of people come to me because I've known her the longest. And I'm like, it's just I was like, it's not about feelings or anything like that. I said, she is trying to run a business, and she's trying to keep us all paid, and she's trying to keep the lights on. So I said, for her, has to be kind of black and white, and it has to be very to the point, because that's how we all get to be here and have such a wonderful life here at True Hope. And so, she's not going to be
it can't always be kumbaya.
Yeah. And you can't always cuddle and, like, hey, no one, your feelings and I get it and blah, blah, blah. Like there has to sometimes be somebody who can say, no, it's very black and white and I have to make this decision for the betterment of everybody.
Exactly.
So we can, keep the doors open and still help people.
Right. Exactly. And then eventually be able to be, again, we want to be as good as possible, but every strategic decision that you make as a business owner, again, that's one of the things that will really keep you up at night is not just clients, but also I felt like, we have myself and 6 therapists here, and I think all the therapists are, are the big, contributor to their income in the house. So it matters. And so that's what would keep me up at night more than anything is to be able to go, okay, am I doing things to make sure that I feel responsible for the people who said, yeah, I'm going to come work for True Hope. So again, just to kind of give you guys talking about business, life, all this kind of stuff. Even my husband now can tell, he's like, okay, what are you got something on your mind? And 9 times out of 10, it has to do with business. As far as making this decision, how do I handle this situation? I've got an opportunity. Do I take it? All this kind of stuff. And that's why it is helpful to have other people in your arena who have been able to also walk that walk. Because sometimes it can get really, really, really lonely. I had a client come in a couple of months ago, and she is amazing, is a young business person, opened this new clinic as far as like a health kind of thing here in Jonesboro. And she came in and she was crying. She goes, I'm so lonely, Amy. And I was like, of course you are. And she goes, what do you mean, of course? And I said, you're the boss. They're not your friends. They can be your friends, but at the end of the day, you have to keep things going. She was even making up bingo cards for them to, like, every time they came into work, they would get like a bingo. They were younger, like what I call like baby workers, in the 20s, early 20s. And she was like, I'm just trying it. And I was like, I know you are. And no one sees it. And she goes, I wasn't prepared for this. And I was like, me neither. None of us really are. Because we go into this, especially if you're a therapist, as kind of an accidental entrepreneur a lot. We don't go into it thinking we're going to own businesses. And maybe eventually, but else we would have been MBAs.
Right.
But we're therapists. And so you have to kind of learn and put yourself in rooms where there are other business people in there or other people who are entrepreneurs or who went through the same stuff to help you understand how to handle some of that. Okay, before we sign off here, for me, I have a few mantras that I've developed over the years as a therapist, again, just a person and business owner, especially putting yourself out there. So one of my mantras that I come back to is when you know better, you do better. And so it allows me to give myself grace. Like this video, this first episode will hopefully be like not the greatest one because as we know better, we do better.
Right.
And so you can't really compare, like I have this nice building now for True Hope. That's not where I started. And so to be able to go, when I know better, I do better. And to give myself grace in that it's okay to not be perfect. So for you, do you have a mantra or kind of saying that you kind of remind yourself, Erin?
I think I use this a lot with clients, and I use this a lot just in like day to day because I can kind of be high strung and I can kind of have a temper. My husband's like the complete opposite of that. And so mine is probably like, they're all just doing the best they can. So we are all just doing the best we can with where we came from, with what we have. And so when you go through a drive-through and somebody's rude to you or something's going on, I don't know, like they're doing the best they can. So I'm constantly just reminding myself we're all just doing the best we can. Mm-hmm. We can all do better and we can do more, but right now in this moment, we're all just doing the best we can.
And it is easier to remember when you're in therapy session than you're in the drive-through.
Absolutely.
And so to be able to, and we're all kind of walking each other home is what I feel like a lot too, is that we're all trying to figure this out. And so to be able to lead with grace and then also keep those boundaries, work, fulfill these roles as a mom, a wife, whatever, it's all a big challenge. And so we're here, through this to help you go, hey, you're not alone. To hopefully maybe give you some ideas about what's worked, what doesn't, the ropes to know, ropes to skip. And then also just to allow you to kind of see the human side of me and the different, Erin and different guests that I'll be able to have on. So as we progress, again, Erin will be with me some. Then I'll also have people who come from different areas of business, different areas of therapy. As far as I have a good friend who's an etiquette coach. What does that look like as a business owner? I have, a friend who does screen printing, and he's, again, a small business owner. Okay, what does that look like for you? What are some of the things that you have to think about? And not necessarily therapy related, but service related as well, because service businesses are often the same. And people who do it well, we can always learn from them. And of course, we'll have therapists and stuff, and then maybe just live people. I'd love to be able to do one of these with my mom. So you guys, to be able to kind of meet my mom or maybe my niece, some of those kind of people who are very near and dear to my heart, to be able to introduce you to those folks who I've learned a lot from as well. So that's kind of, again, what to expect from us in the future. Hopefully this will be really, really great, and we will, you guys will tune in. So what I need you to do now, subscribe to the channel. Again, bookmark this, all this kind of stuff. I'll have other links. If you subscribe through my email and stuff, you'll get in. But the easiest way is subscribe where you are. It's on YouTube, or if you're listening to this on the podcast, you can absolutely do that. Make sure that you get a reminder of every time we put out a new episode. All right, guys, thank you so much. And again, I will see you next time. Bye.
Bye.